So bring us up to speed. What is happening in Syria and what should we be concerned about?
Yeah, right now, what we have happening in Syria is you have a full-blown civil war occurring. Assad is basically holding on to certain areas that are, including parts of the capital and along the coast, that his minority group, the Alawites, are able to control. And then on the other side, you have a vast array of groups. Many of them are Islamists. Some of them are closely tied to Al-Qaeda. One of them, the Al-Nusra Front, has actually openly declared its allegiance and sworn bayat, or a pledge of allegiance, to Ayman al-Zawahiri. This happened just last week. This group has been at the vanguard of the fight. It fights with the supposedly secular Free Syrian Army, which is anything but. It's heavily influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood. Free Syrian Army also fights underneath the command and control of the Nusra Front at times. And it's one of its founders and top leaders has praised the Al-Nusra Front. And they're gaining ground. They control areas in the south, areas in the east. And it's a very effective group. And the Al-Nusra Front itself is estimated to have about 10,000 by the administration, about 10,000 fighters. So you have Al-Qaeda, you have an Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria, that in a country that is awash with chemical and other type of weapons of mass destruction, gaining ground, implementing areas when the administration says that Al-Qaeda is defeated, and anything is but closer to the truth.
Now, Bill, this is pretty frightening stuff. I don't know that I've seen all this in the American press. What you're basically saying is that Al-Qaeda is a large part, if not the controlling part, of this rebellion in Syria. Where do they get their money? Where do they get their support? Where's that coming from?
Yeah, their money, they're getting it locally. There's a lot of support for the Al-Nusra Front within Syria, but where they're also getting it from where Al-Qaeda always gets its money, and that's from that so-called golden chain, that group of donors in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries. They've never been handled by their host nations, and they're still out there, and they're still able to dole out cash by the millions to support groups like Al-Nusra. I wouldn't say Al-Nusra controls the rebellion, but it's a very influential part of it, and it's so influential that the groups that the Americans are seeking, the U.S. is seeking to co-opt, are openly praise it and support the Nusra Front, and have actually castigated the United States for designating the Nusra Front as a terrorist group, as it should.
Now, Bill, with that in mind, then, I've heard a lot of different kinds of reports that the American administration, the Obama administration, is helping this rebellion through Turkey, through other sources in the Middle East, and it may have been that Benghazi and all what went on there had something to do with that help. How do you analyze Obama's actions here?
Yeah, what the administration is trying to do is they're trying to find the so-called secular part of this this insurgency in Syria, and they're trying to work with the Free Syrian Army as well as the Syrian Opposition Council. But as I noted before, these groups have openly praised and noted that they support the Nusra Front and fight alongside it. So they're trying to funnel money, and they're also supporting governments like Qatar and Saudi Arabia that provide money to groups like the Free Syrian Army and Syrian Opposition Council. That money is fungible, and ultimately it goes to support, given that they're conducting joint operations with them. The reality is the U.S. government really doesn't have a handle on what the Nusra Front is, as well as what members of the coalition, the Syrian rebels, who they have their allegiances to. It's a real mess, and I gotta hope the administration gets a grip on it. But when you read the press reports citing officials about this, you'll see that they really don't know.
Now, Bill, Iran has used Syria for decades as an ally to support terrorism against Israel, to support Iran's ambitions, and they support the Assad regime. Is this one of those situations where it's a war really between Iran and its brand of Islam and the other nations and their brand of Islam?
Yeah, in some ways it is. You have Iran providing direct support to the Syrian regime, as well as sending in Hezbollah. There's a report just today that 1,000 Hezbollah fighters have entered Syria to fight alongside the Assad regime. And it gets back to the point that you made at the very beginning of the program. There are no good guys in this battle. The very few good guys that may exist in Syria are so weak and isolated that even if we do throw our support behind them, they're not going to affect the way the outcome of this war. I mean, who does the U.S. support? You get rid of Assad and you deal a blow to Iran, but if the opposition wins, then you see the Al-Nusra Front and Al-Qaeda, making great strides within the Middle East and establishing yet another base, and again possibly having access to chemical weapons inside of Syria.
Well, given that situation, then I did note that maybe $100 million or something, a large amount of money, being announced by Secretary of State Clinton before she left the Department of State, and being announced by the Obama administration over time that they were helping through Turkey some of these is the American taxpayer financing Al-Qaeda? Let's get to the bottom line.
I think at some point, yes. The reality is this money is going to groups. There's been reports in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal where officials say they don't really know who we're talking to or who we're dealing with exactly. And given the fact that millions upon millions of dollars are coming across the border and are at the very least supporting groups that support Al-Qaeda, we are essentially very, very likely supporting Al-Qaeda with American taxpayer dollars. It really is a mistake. It's a monumental mistake. Any chance that we had to support the Syrian rebellion, that would have started at the very beginning. Jumping in now is an absolute mistake.